Dear participants, dear panelists, and dear followers, guests, our friends, welcome to our fourth session on the International Youth Conference. I'm very happy that we are together this evening and that we will spend time till 6:30 on a topic which is very popular these days. And actually it was popular and before COVID, but especially during these difficult times and spending more time about developing ideas how we will continue into the future. Most of the time we speak about something which is reasonably understood, but it's not always clear what it means. Yes, I speak about sustainable development, and you know that this is the topic of our session today. My name is Biljana Dukovska, and I am the official president of Anti-Poverty Platform, Macedonia Anti-Poverty Platform. And once people who know me always says, okay, this is your session, this is your passion, and probably in the middle you will switch to speaking about poverty, but it will not be a big mistake because during the session we definitely we will tackle the poverty. It's my pleasure to be in a session with three wonderful panelists, three wonderful, powerful women, which will help me to deliver at the best how actually the youth and the sustainable goals are connected and how we can develop better future for everybody. Since this is a conference in which we are sharing a lot of experiences, but we learn a lot, I will use my role as a moderator to throw several definitions which are not always and usually shared, just in case if we have some participants or followers who are not very familiar with the definitions of the words we will use today and in the concept which we will discuss in next couple of hours. So I just want to say that this is not my session. It is just a session in which I will have a role of coordinator, and this is actually your session, and I expect each of you who is on our Zoom platform to take part and to speak openly, because each young person should be a voice, not an echo. I want to spend several seconds once again to ask to be active, to have your cameras on, to have your names on the screens, and not to hesitate to discuss openly about everything you think it's related to this topic, even if you still not find it in the working materials you've received. If you want to share something, please virtually raise your hand or write something in the chat or give us some sign that you would like to join in the session actively. We encourage you not only to type, but actually to discuss with us and to discuss with our panelists. Most important thing, ask them as much as possible because they know everything. So, before introducing the first panelist, I will read my first definition. So, what actually building better means? It requires decision makers to acknowledge generational divides and access them divisively in order to leave no one behind. You will hear this no one behind several times, maybe even more than several times. And then, intersecting identity factors such as sex, gender, race, ethnicity, and intellectual or physical disability and socio-economic disadvantage make exacerbate the vulnerability of young people. For example, homelessness youth, young people not in employment, education, or training, young migrants, etc. So, please be aware that governments must therefore seek to anticipate the impact of migration and recovery measures both within and across different age cohorts to avoid widening inequalities. And mostly, this is what we will speak about. We will speak about rights, we will speak about values, we will speak about making networks, we will speak about gender issues, but mostly we will overcome everything which is problem in developing a bright future for everyone. And you know, you have the biggest responsibility into this, because actually after today, the future is mostly yours, not ours. And in this sense, the first panelist will mostly introduce the topic and will answer briefly what is sustainable development, what we have mean when we named this session Youth for Sustainable Development Goals in the Southeast Europe region. And our first panelist is Ms. Bogomila Kormanova, Youth Delegate of Bulgaria to the UN 2019-2020, and she is actually one of the two Bulgarian delegates. I was reading her short intro, and for me the most important thing is that she describes volunteering as her true calling, and she was joining the United Nations Association of Bulgaria as a volunteer, which take her to the position to speak in the front of UN. So this is a perfect opportunity to welcome her and to allow her to describe us what social development means.
Thank you so much for that. And I would like to thank everybody who's helped me to be part of this great conference. Now, I would like to share my screen, but I can see that the host has disabled it. I have prepared a short presentation, but if it's if I can't share it, it's okay. I can still talk about it. I just need a confirmation from the host. Okay. Just a second. Great. So, what is sustainable development? Now, as a start, at the core of sustainable development is sustainability. So being sustainable means being able to maintain a certain level of something. There are three main pillars to sustainable development, and those are economic, environmental, and social. Or there are three certain aspects of sustainable development. As a definition, sustainable development is the kind of development that meets the present needs or the needs of today without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The term was officially agreed on in 1987, but there's actually evidence, curiously enough, that people have been talking about sustainable development ever since the 16th century. So that was 5 centuries ago. We know some very good examples of sustainability, such as sustainable fashion, the opposite of fast fashion. H&M is actually one of the brands, a Swedish brand. One of the brands that is famous for is consciousness towards the ecosystem, and they recycle and they reuse the materials that they use for their fashion, something that is opposite to fast fashion. Fast fashion is clothes that you buy and you only wear for a year and then you throw away or give up to charity. Another example that we are now even more used to is zero waste. Zero waste is another great movement that is close to recycling, but the only difference is that it produces obviously zero waste. Last but not least, the corporate social responsibility. The corporate social responsibility in major terms is actually pretty good because corporations around the world, they're famous for polluting and their pollution. But nowadays, the bigger companies are actually thinking about their employees and the society as a whole. not only for their production. Probably at the heart of the sustainable development are the 17 global sustainable development goals. There are 17 sustainable development goals, but 169 targets. So that's a lot. And we can see here that they're actually every certain pillar of the sustainable development is covered. How did it all start? In September 2015, the member states of the United Nations actually agreed on Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. At its heart, it was the Sustainable Development Goals. And there was assurance that no one will be left behind, including young people. This is why young people should be involved in achieving the sustainable development. There are different definitions of young, but we're going to talk about that later. What I can do as a young person. The United Nations has developed a great initiative called the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. It's a great initiative because it starts at a very low level and you can start doing things that are very simple to achieve, such as turning off the lights when you're not in the room, or not letting the tap water run, or not wasting any food. As we all know, food waste is one of the main polluters in the world. Young people and their role for achieving sustainable development. So as I said, there are different definitions of young people. But for example, Bulgaria's definition is people that are aged between 15 and 29. But the United Nations definition is people that are aged 15 to 24. And currently there are 1.8 billion young people worldwide. If we can only imagine if they all combine their efforts and their mutual potential, so there's so much we can achieve actually. So making our voice heard by being included and participating and being empowered is extremely, extremely important. For instance, you should engage with the government because they're not only included, but they should be able to participate in decision-making processes at all levels, something that we as youth delegates already do. The Youth Delegates to the UN program actually is an old program. It started in the 1980s and is now currently applied to around 40 countries in the world out of 193 member states of the UN, which is a pretty low number considering the fact that maybe half of those 40 countries are actually European countries. So there forms a small cluster of European countries. And within that cluster are the Balkan countries. For example, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Albania, Romania, those are all countries that have the UN Youth Delegate program, but there are many, many others that are still not applying it. So in Bulgaria, the program was founded about 14 years ago, and it's one of the most successful programs in the world. I can proudly say that. It is coordinated by the United Nations Association of Bulgaria, and we have the wide support of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have always been a great partner, and we always coordinate everything with them, and they give us incredible expertise. The UN Youth Delegates are the voice of young people. For instance, we, the Bulgarian Youth Delegates, do an annual survey among the youth in order to recognize the problems and the needs of young people. We circulate it physically at youth events such as these, for example, and of course we distribute it online where we can reach numerous young people. Based on the survey, we form our main priorities as youth delegates. Right now, those are quality education and employment, something that we can see is very much important nowadays for pretty much everybody. During our entire mandate of a year and a half, we focus our work on these priorities on a national and an international level. What we do is we go to the UN headquarters in New York City twice a year, once for the third committee in the General Assembly, and then in the Economic and Social Council. What we do there is we hold speeches both times based on the survey that we have in our mandate. We get to raise the voice of young Bulgarians on an international level. And then what we do is we also organize side events with other youth delegates. And we have been honored to have a side event with the youth delegates of Ireland, the youth delegates of Romania. Those are pretty interesting ones. We actually worked with UNESCO and the International Labour Organization. And This year was a very historical moment for us as young people and as delegates, because during the pandemic, obviously, it was very hard for everybody to participate and to be included in all these processes. But we were one of the few countries, Bulgaria was one of the few countries that was able to include their youth delegates. Our pre-recorded video was actually preceding the national statement, which in the diplomatic world is something great and is very big. So what we do is we have a contest every year, a transparent contest of 4 steps. And everybody is very much invited to join. Everybody who wants to participate feels like they have an interest towards human rights. They maintain a good level of English. There are no restrictions to what you study. For example, I myself am a student in finance and accounting, and my co-delegate, Mr. Minko Doskolov, he's actually an electrical engineer. So everybody is invited to join. We strongly recommend applying the program in your own country. For example, if you have the interest of applying the program and you want to be the next youth delegate to the UN of your own country, we can make that happen. Bulgaria has great traditions in the multiplicator program. This program focuses on helping other countries to implement.
Who are not familiar what this abbreviation means, UNFPA is the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency with mission to deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. There is a lot how I can introduce Ms. Ferro, but for me the most important thing that she came from Portugal. And in this sense, when we are not able to travel, this is a good feeling to have somebody from other country and to speak on a level where you can share similar topics and similar thoughts. So, Ms. Ferro, please, it's your time. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Viviana. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel, and thank you for allowing me to participate in a panel on youth, because it's not only one of our priorities, and when I say our, I'm talking about United Nations Population Fund, but it's also a key actor to achieve the SDGs, and I think that it's very relevant that the panel is framed the way it is. And then if you allow me, I would like to say hello to the organizers and to my co-panelists, but also a special thank you to the regional office of UNFPA in Icaro and our office in North Macedonia. They were very helpful in also helping you to understand the overall context of the work that we are doing specifically on the region. So I sit in Geneva. And this is relevant for you to understand that the way I look at this discussion is from a multilateral perspective. It's from engaging with the Human Rights Council, it's from engaging with the World Health Organization, with the High Commissioner for Refugees, and just to mention a couple that are some of our main interlocutors. But I also come from a specific experience. So I've taught the UN for many years, and I've been a parliamentarian. So this is important for you to understand why, in the end, I try to bring all these levels of governance together. But I really enjoyed the first presentation, and it was not only very informative, it was also very thought-provocative. And I'm going to start with something that that was mentioned, this idea that the Sustainable Development Goals, in order to achieve a world with more dignity for all, they have this idea of leaving no one behind. And so my question is, what do we have to do to fulfill on that promise? Especially now with the urgency that was brought to us because we've just entered what the UN calls a decade of action. If you want to call it a decade of acceleration, it's 10 years left to deliver on the SDGs. We have to deliver them until 2030. And with all the setbacks and challenges that COVID has put in front of us, I dare to say that business as usual is not an option, and also going back to normal is not an option. So we need to hear the call, if I may say this, of the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, when he said, we need to rethink multilateralism. We don't need to reinvent it. We need to analyze it and make it truly fit for purpose, if I can say this. As we all know, I'm not going to go back in history for many, many years, but multilateral institutions, they were created to deal with problems that were too big to be faced by one country by itself. Climate change, disease outbreaks, they're just probably the two most visible expressions of this phenomena that are just too big to be dealt exclusively at the national level. But also challenges such as the realization of human rights, keeping the peace, building a more sustainable and secure world, a world with more dignity for all, as I was saying. And to do that, and to leave no one behind, we need to reach first the ones who've been left the furthest behind. And as UNFPA has often highlighted, women and girls and youth are the ones who have been left out of the decision-making processes, out of the program design, and out of the implementation of programs and the evaluation of mechanisms. And now that we know this, as you were saying, Viviana, we cannot ignore it. And so UNFPA has struggled to show how certain groups in situations of vulnerability, how they face overlapping and intersectional discriminations. And I'm talking about young people with disabilities, young migrants and refugees, LGBTQI, and just to name a few that belong to this cohort of population, as Brovomila was saying, a huge cohort of the world population. I could also mention older persons, women and girls of African descent, indigenous people, people that belong to certain ethnic or cultural groups. But today, it's very timely that we focus on youth and their extraordinary transformative power. But let me get back to Guterres' challenge, and let's reimagine multilateralism. First, by acknowledging that many of the tremendous achievements of multilateralism, they are either unappreciated or taken by granted. You know, when I was teaching, I used to challenge my students and tell them that if they could find an area of human activity for which I didn't know an international organization, either working on standards or implementation, they would get an extra credit by the end of the semester. Never happened. So if we really want to deliver on the SDGs, we need to build a truly networked multilateralism, a multi-level multilateralism. And from the global level to the regional, national, subnational, and grassroots movements, we are called to be a part of the process. And this is almost a paradigm shift from previous frameworks. This has been very clear for many years. This top-down approaches, they will not be sufficient, in the sense that you cannot decide from top-down or from outside to inside what should be the priorities of our country and what should be the actors of a certain process. That's very clear. But I have to tell you also that all these bottom-up processes, they need to adopt a macro perspective. And I think it was you, Viviana, you were talking precisely about that. You know, all the things that we do in our private lives, in our actions, also as a community, it reflects on the global performance. And we often say that global is always someone's local, but the other way is also around, meaning that what we do at a local level will impact the common and the global good. And what does this mean for youth and their role in achieving the SDGs? And I'm going to give you the specific perspective and the work that we, the United Nations Population Fund, a UN agency that just celebrated 50 years, what we do in both perspectives, because we see them as a continuum, the local and the global. At the global level, we've just adopted our adolescents and youth strategy that it's fully aligned with the UN Youth 2030, the UN strategy for youth, to which we've also contributed. And our strategy is called My Body, My Life, My World. And it really aims to ensure adolescents and young people that they have unrestricted access to quality sexual and reproductive health services. They are complemented with comprehensive sexuality education and also the life skills and the agency needed to make their own decisions. And we believe that this is a critical condition for them to make decisions about their future and employment, be engaged citizens in their countries, and also contribute to the development, peace, and security of their communities, and to reap what we call the demographic dividends. And this strategy is part of our efforts to empower young people and to enable them to become drivers of change. We've heard already that in order to have a properly designed youth policy, first we need to understand the conditions that are facing the conditions facing vulnerable, marginalized adolescents. And by that, we need to use data from census, demographic and health surveys, or any other sources. You have to know what you are planning for. And we need to bring, and this is the multi-level approach to it. We need to bring governments, civil society, donors, the private sector, and youth-led organizations to advocate for more investment in young people as a development priority. When I was in Parliament, and we often got requests from civil society organizations, and youth-led civil society organizations are always very dynamic. We used to tell them that they needed to persuade not only the line minister, the minister that covers their specific portfolio, but also the finance ministry, because all this requires investment. It's not a cost. It has to be presented as an investment. And but coming back to NFPA, we also feel that it's very important to support independent, effective, and sustainable organizations led by young people, especially marginalized adolescents, so they can advocate for their human rights and their development priorities. And this is why we are very engaged in building the skills of young leaders, and also in involving young people and youth-led organizations, as I was saying, in policy making and programming. And this is one of the examples I want to bring to you, and it's really from your region. And so the cooperation that United Nations Population Fund and the Youth Network YPeer have in the region is truly inspirational. First of all, as I've mentioned, because real youth participation, it's at the heart of what we do. And because we walk the talk, to help us reach youth organizations and keep us accountable to young people, we have a youth partner working at the regional office. The current youth partner is the third one, and he was selected by his peers. So this program, the YPeer, which is a short name for Youth Peer, it has more than 20 years, and it was established in this region with the support of UNFPA. Now it has become a global network of youth organizations that deliver on the promise of the International Conference on Population and Development, the ICPD, held in Cairo in 1994, and it delivers on this approach peer-to-peer. And we continue to support the YPeer network. For instance, in North Macedonia, in cooperation with UNFPA, the cooperation with UNFPA, sorry, it has been strengthened last several months with youth-led COVID-19 response through workshops and campaigns addressing urgent needs of the most vulnerable, of course, with a focus on sexual reproductive health, comprehensive sexuality education, mental health, domestic violence for young people with disabilities, Roma girls, young LGBT, and also YPeer, in cooperation with the government of the Republic of Macedonia and with the support of UNFPA, has organized, and this is very important because it links with what my predecessor just said, but we organized the youth consultation for the voluntary national review that has been designed to embrace this principle of leave no one behind of the SDGs, but focusing on youth's meaningful participation in the implementation of the SDGs. So in the Q&A, if you want, I can talk a little bit more about what's the relevance of this voluntary national review. Also, mid-December this year, the YPeers and UNFPA and another organization called Petri Sofia, we will support a virtual regional hackathon for about 120 people to find hacks to strengthen youth organizations and to ensure effective youth engagement and making the voices of those furthest behind being heard. And also in North Macedonia, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo and Albania, we are partnering with RICO, the Regional Youth Cooperation Office, YPeer and other youth organizations and young people, so that we can develop a methodology and training for young people from vulnerable groups on a peer-to-peer youth peace building. And just to finalize, in Belarus and Georgia, we have helped convene and train young people to ensure young people's participation and their views are well represented in universal periodic review processes. and I'll just say a couple of words on that because I'm reaching the limit of my time. Sorry. In 14 of 17 of our UNFPA program countries in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, support of young people's rights to information on their sexual and reproductive health through comprehensive sexuality education in and out of school is a priority. And also, as it was mentioned, COVID has placed many, many challenges ahead of us. And UNFPA is supporting the assessment of how COVID-19 is going to impact people's lives, to develop evidence-based responses to keep young people safe, and to tap into their enormous resources to support national COVID-19 responses, and also to ensure the continued development of young people's potential. We have always a focus on those who have been left the furthest behind. And in the response to COVID-19 crisis, we partnered with the youth-led organization Teenergizer to ensure psychological, social support and counseling to young people living with HIV or at the risk of HIV. So as you can see, there's a plethora of projects and good practices that are changing the discourse around the SDGs and leave no one behind, because the voices of young people are being heard. Young people have a seat at the table. And I remember hearing a couple of years ago, the special envoy of the Secretary General of the UN to youth, Jayatma Vikramanayaka, and she was saying that she often hears this kind of excuse saying, you know, young people don't have a seat at the table because the table is not big enough. And so the answer is build bigger tables. If you really want to give a voice to young people, and preferably a voice and a vote, you need to create mechanisms that can really accommodate their questions. So my advice to you would be in 3 very sharp messages. Know the mechanisms that allow you to have a voice in the implementation, but also in the design and the report of the SDGs. Voluntary national reviews, parliaments, this universal periodic review mechanism that has a critical shortage of recommendations on youth. The UPR is a peer review mechanism by which every 4 years, every member state of the United Nations gets their human rights legislation reviewed by other member states. So member states issue recommendations to each other. And this is a very important mechanism for you as youth organizations, but also for you as youth to get organized in your countries and reach out to the mechanisms so that your voice can be heard. Also, it was mentioned the United Nations. The United Nations carries 2 biannual resolutions focused on youth, one here in Geneva and another one in New York. Learn what's the process, understand how you can influence these resolutions so that they can frame your challenges and your asks. And I've just heard that also when it comes to good practices, some countries are adopting the Lisbon Plus 21 Declaration. The Lisbon Plus 21 Declaration came from a Ministers of Youth organization and a youth forum meeting that happened last year in Lisbon. And I heard that the Bosnia and Herzegovina, they've just adopted, they've just created a working group to develop a roadmap for the implementation of those measures. And again, UNFPA is also behind this organization. So I know that I've spoke already too much. I always get excited when I talk about these things, but what we can see from this multi-level, meaning it's not only governments that hold the seat, it's international organizations, it's regional organizations, it's your national forums, your subnational forums. So what we see from here, especially with the inputs from youth, it's that the impact is truly transformative. It's not only transformative for youth, but also for their families, for their communities, for their nations and their regions. So a multi-level strategy to deliver multi-level wins and results, it's really the way ahead if we want to leave no one behind and deliver on the promises we are making to the people of the world for many, many years. Thank you so much, Viviana.
Ms. Ferro, this was motivational and inspirational at the same time, so thank you a lot. I appreciate spending your time here with us. And it's difficult to wrap up your discussion because each of your sentences actually have a specific message, and I will add something to your presentation, which is important for me as someone who is dealing with poverty and which is a friend with UNFPA Macedonian office. So here, what I think it's very important to say, and especially send a message to young people who already are in position to influence on a national policies or whatever, local, any type of policies, who are using mechanisms and who are in position to sit on a table. They must help to their friends who are not in position to speak loudly, or they are not invited to speak loudly, or they have not enough space to present their voices. So we need young people to take care about their friends, which voices are not heard enough, and that's the only way if we want to speak about inclusive society, and if we really want to do what we are preaching for, and that's that each of us is important, that each of us can contribute, and that each of us actually is particle in this sustainable development or sustainable future. So I'm following the chat, and still there are a lot of discussions about the consumption and about the companies, and probably that's because it's kind of a trend, and we must follow the youth trends if we want to influence on them or to shape them, or as you said, to rethink them and to make them better. For me, just one more sentence, and I will continue with our third panelist. Youth must have idea how to put new glasses on a government and to force them to see the policies by their point of view. So maybe this will somehow raise interest about the discussion, and will, I don't know, maybe inspire some new questions for you. And I have one more definition for today, and that will be the last definition, which I will read, and it's about the resilience, because our third panelist will speak about ground-up, local resilient answer, and it was very difficult for me to find a proper definition according to this panel, and I choose this one. Resilience is a curious, amorphous concept taken from the discipline of ecology to denote a self-sustainable dynamic capacity, the capacity of social, economic, and environmental systems to cope with a hazardous event or trend or disturbance, responding or reorganizing in ways that maintain their essential function, identity, and structure, while also maintaining the capacity for adaptation, learning, and transformation. I don't know if it is truly good definition for this point, but I like this adaptation, learning, and transformation as starting position for reshaping our future. And our third panelist is Ms. Dragana Tomic-Filipovic, founder of Center for Socially Responsible Entrepreneurship and the Rural Hub, as I would like to present in place of creation, development, and support. And this is actually written in their description in the, I think it was LinkedIn, I'm not sure. But the main question on which she will do her presentation is, what can young people do? And maybe she will share her example, why was she doing this, and how and what type of example she's spreading to young persons around her. So, Ms. Filipovic, welcome.
Thank you, Biljana. I would like you to ask you to repeat this definition because I was trying to Google all the day to be sure what is really definition of my subtopic, and thank you for this. And hello to everybody. As Biljana told, my name is Dragana, and I'm the somebody who is, let's say, living what I'm speaking in the way that I, after 20 years of doing different kind of things in the business, especially which is connected with the people development, decide to move myself and to, with my family, and to start a center for social responsible entrepreneurship, and to have a rural hub in the small village in the southeast Serbia. This was a decision which was made before 10 years. And for sure, many people was thinking that I'm a crazy person, because who is leaving the capital town and a good position in a big company to live in the small places in very poor area. But if you want to really follow your heart and what you really want to do, then whatever you do is sustainable development, because as Biljana told at the beginning, it's not only the question about definition, it's the question of the values which you have. So one of my biggest experience after 5-6 years of that rural hub is really working now, is that whenever you put the person with the values, you will get sustainable development, because whatever you do, you will just put this kind of the goals in your life or business life or organization or community. And I'm very happy that what I'm doing is something which is motivated other people to think that this kind of the things are possible, and that are not just goals on the paper, which somebody just puts because they're nice to hear or nice to see. And what is interesting in this case is because the first of all, this is very, very small village in the southeast Serbia, which is very poor. And it's here there is like maybe 500 inhabitants, and most of them are very, very old people. But what happened the last 10 years was that with the new people who come to this village, and by promoting the new concept, we raise attractiveness to the other people to come and to live. And how we raise attractiveness is that we promote urban concepts. And this is also a very important message to all of you, is that if you move yourself to live in the village, it's not that you become somebody who is a farmer. I'm still Dragana, who has very big urban experience from the business, but I'm also open to learn from the local people how to live in the villages and how I can use this kind of the knowledge to make and develop special value to the community. And having this kind of the approach, in the meaning that my knowledge is not bigger than the knowledge of the local people, we really make a common spot and made a specific model of development in this village. So we make synergy, but not only between different kind of the knowledge, but also between different kind of generation or different generation. And what happened is that youth in this village find very attractive now to be the story. So we use good marketing for the young people to become part of this project and community, especially with the family, because the good businesses or small businesses here, which we promote, are not just empowering the women or just empowering the youth. We are empowering the family, because in that way, we just use whole potential and resources which are existing in the houses and the family. And young people find very interesting to use new technology in order to help and promote unique
things from this village and to the rural hub, because rural hub is a hub where whole village is a hub. So we are using, for example, if you come to the hub, you will not sleep in this place, but you will sleep in different kind of the houses in the village, and you will have the possibility to meet the different kind of the family. And young people like to be a host to the people who are coming, especially for the people who are coming abroad. And this is also a great opportunity to practice different kind of the language and also to practice a different kind of the skills. For example, we also develop, as a good example of that, we develop interactive map through the village and the centuries, which is combination of the modern app for the mobile with the heritage and what this village has to offer to the tourism. But this tourism is also not the local tourism in the meaning you just come, but it's also connected with the impact tourism in the meaning that you know that every euro which you left to this village, it's going to the special family, and that you support special story which is behind of the product and the service. So when you're buying some product and service, you're not just buying that, you're just buying also the personal story, and you know that you support this family. For example, we have Sashka, who has 3 young children, and they have the problem with education. And if you know that by giving and paying, for example, for the lunch, these young people will have opportunity to finish a school, it's a totally different when you are paying this kind of the services. And people really like to help that. And what I also see is that it's not only the story of my parents, for example, here now the young people from the village, it's now the story of all of us, of community. And this is how we really made the common spot for change, and how we make a critical mass that we can be different, and how we can use our differences in order to make a value and to make change in our community. So I'm not so sure did I present in the best way, but the best and the message which I really wanted to give you is that there is a lot of wisdom around you, and there is a lot of knowledge, and there is also a lot of possibility, and there is also a lot of opportunity. If we really want to change the world, we really have to have this change in ourselves, and that we have to be open for the networking, that we have to be open to be vulnerable, that we have to be open to ask for help, and that it's okay that if the people have different knowledge. And if I'm listening to grandpa, it's not that I'm not fancy, it's just that I can use the different aspect of that knowledge in order to make a special added value, and that we can enjoy when we are building this new community. And this is a great moment of doing that, because what I also see is that the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of people, old people, a lot of them are dying because the villages are also dying. And by this dying of the old people, we are using this special knowledge which is not existing anymore, because future will be virtual, but also it will be very, very depending from the physical aspect, in the meaning, are you capable to produce food? Are you capable to give air to the children and the future generation? Are you capable to earn money without harming environment? And with this, good economy and social entrepreneurship is very, very important, because we can use a business not only to make money, but also to make a solution for the social problem, but in the way that we are taking care about the planet. So if you think, is that possible? Yes, it is, but it's not easy, it's hard. And it's not a short run, it's a long run. But if you want to see your children in the nature, this is for the short topic, which you have to act immediately, not to wait somebody else to do the job for you. So this is from my side.
Ms. Pilipovic, thank you about this warm third panel, especially that you open something which was very important during this COVID crisis. It was important to have somebody you can share with your pain or your loneliness or your thoughts, or maybe even just to check if you are thinking right. And during your presentation, my mind says, okay, maybe the empathy is new fancy thing in the world, and we should stick to it, we should promote it, and we should tag it to the sustainable development, because it's not possible to be something sustainable if we don't care enough for things which are around us, which are dependent by us, and which we are dependent on. So I don't want to talk more by myself, because this is not my show, but I would like to invite our participants in the conference to speak loud now, because I saw that they are very good in typing. I see that they knew the concepts, and they already knew each other, and they already knew how the positions of different countries are different in this context. But maybe, I don't know, maybe my question for them is to raise a hand or to speak loudly what is their most important SDG and why it is the most important one for them, to which value which they appreciate this is connected, and maybe to which of your presentation is that connected. So I need to look in my chat box if somebody raised a hand. Now I will. Okay, we have Nicola Passaro from Italy, and I don't see another hand, but I need to have another hand after him. So Nicola, please. Aha, I have another hand.
I have to explain if I right understood the question was the most important sustainable development goal for me.
Yes,
Yeah?
you may answer to that. Yes.
Maybe it's better now. Okay.
Yeah, it's better.
So, okay. I think the most important goals to achieve probably is peace and justice, sustainable peace. Why I'm saying this? I guess the most part of the problem actually existing in the world derived by the inability to the people to communicate each other and to don't have a right road to take on to achieve some other kind of development. I guess it's important to create the basis, all the basis for a safety environment and a very good environment where people are able to speak very quietly and to have the possibility to give the people to the possibility to live in a safety environment. For many countries and for many local communities, this is still impossible. We have a lot of war zone. We have a lot of countries where there are civil war or where there are impossible conditions to develop or to take every kind of discussion because the most people are unable to talk or unable to stay quiet during their everyday life. So I think developing a good diplomacy skill and to create a peaceful environment for everybody is the right advice to all the rest. Just this.
Thank you, Nicola. And maybe do you have some questions for our panelists? Do you like something from their presentation which you may take in your context in your country?
In my country, no, I don't have any particular question. Even if we are trying to, in my country, little by little, to achieve the same goal, it's harder because we in Italy have an older generation, and it's very difficult to take with them about all these, the newest topic of modernity. I mean, both right and left people. So it's a tragic situation, but not so tragic. Anyway, okay.
Okay, I understand you very well about this having older generation in surrounding. So we have another hand, as I announced previously. It's Francesco Capellini. Francesco?
Yeah, it's me. I'm here. Well, first of all, following Nicolo's speech, Italy is supposed to be one of the top 8 in the top 8 position in terms of results in achieving SDG by 2030. So I agree that the political situation maybe and the intergenerational situation in Italy is really bad, but in the overall view, it's one of the best states in the world. Then to answer your question, I suppose it was provocative as a question because what we try to highlight with the design of this session is that achieving SDGs is a complex issue. So like saying one SDG is better than the others, it can be misleading. Like, of course, peace is needed, but also water is needed. Also, work is needed. Also, education is needed. And that's why it's so complex to understand how it works and where to focus. I was reading the chat before, and I saw that, and here I go to a question to the panelists. I saw that there was a big focus on individual responsibility, which is paramount and which is the first step. But as Monica Ferro said before, like we need to understand the mechanism of the delivery of this system. And so starting from an individual point of view can be misleading because it's like we're saying, we are the responsible one, the others are the stupid ones. Who are the categories of stupid people? The less developed, the older people. So it's great to focus on raising awareness, but also we need to understand how to have a systemic approach, because we can be responsible in our choices if we have right choices to be made. And so we need to create these right choices. And to create these right choices is to change an economic system. Like if an industry is producing plastic bottle, they're not evil. They're not saying, we think plastic bottle is the best thing in the world. But maybe they have 200 employees. They have a supply chain with other enterprises working for them. They have skilled workers to work like that. How do you change that system? It's not my choice of not buying the bottle of water. So I would like to, I don't really know who can answer to this, but how do we make the passage from individual responsibility to understand how in a collective way we can act, not just as individuals, acting on the system with our jobs, not just with our choices at the supermarket. Sorry.
Thank you, Francesco, but actually this was my point. That's why I ask which SDG you will choose, because I want to conclude that each of the SDGs have their place and we must fulfill them all if we want to have a real sustainable progress. Thank you a lot about your intervention. And I read that Angeliki De Vreli wants to speak. Sorry that I'm mispronounced your names, but
it's okay. Thank you very much. Previously you asked how can we make the government notice us and how we can change things. And my answer to this is that I'm not that optimistic that governments will notice us or they will hear us. What I believe is that if we, for example, the NGOs, I am part of one in which we try to have an impact to the world. doing lots of things. So in my opinion, what we can do is to create things of our own, like NGOs, in which we can, due to the fact that we have this stimuli about sustainability and how we can make this work, in which I don't know if I'm being clear, in which we can work this way and have a bigger impact.
Thank you. So I'm just curious if some of the panelists want to add something to these previous three discussions. Okay, please.
Yes, I want to get back to the question about how to make the transition from individual to collective action. And what comes to the top of my head is actually the fact that it all started in the European Union. There's currently a movement towards the ban of plastic use. So it all started from individuals coming together and saying to the EU, they were from NGOs, they were individuals not from NGOs, but they all they wanted to have their voice heard. And what they did was they came together and they said, we want to ban plastic. So plastic, for instance, some of the types of plastic are going to be banned within the EU in 2021 or 2022, I think. So by then, that's a great change, and that's a great transition, again, from individual to collective. So I do believe that it all starts from the individuals themselves.
Thank you. So I see that Christian from iPure Network from Macedonia raised his hand, and I know that in the chat, iPure Albania said that they are very active. So I would like to hear both of them, like if we may compare their experiences. Christian, you're the first one.
Thank you, Biljana. Good afternoon, everyone. So when it comes to the SDGs, what is super important, according to me, is to make sure that we have to be aware that all the SDGs needs to be achieved. So we cannot achieve one SDG and leave something else forgotten somewhere. And in order to build that, in my opinion, the crucial thing is partnership. And we need to be sure that we are building bridges and ensure that no one is left behind. And in order to do that, I would like to express my gratitude to UNFPA support regarding investing in young people and supporting them. So YPR motto is empowering young people to empower each other. And in terms of that, I would like to ask a question, if it's possible, to the panelists. What do you think, how can we, as young people, ensure that we have a seat at the table first? And when we have the seat at the table, to engage with the decision makers and ensure that they're hearing our voices in terms of our needs and our aspirations? And how can we make the decision makers accountable regarding their commitments made with the Agenda 2030 and the ICPD agenda? Thank you.
So Christian, was your question directed to someone directly, or you want three opinions?
I would like three opinions, but I think that also I would like to hear more from the UNFPA side. So it will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fera?
Thank you, Biljana. Thank you for the question. I'm biting my tongue because I feel like talking about things that are not only UNFPA, and I won't resist. First, on how can we make our voices being heard, and in this case, how can you make your voices being heard? Because I don't qualify as youth in any of the criteria. Actually, today is my birthday, so I'm turning 48 today.
Oh, happy birthday!
So there's no criteria where I can still fit as a young person, but I was one, and I remember that one of the things that made me really, really furious was hearing things like young people are the future, and I always thought, no, we are the present, so we want a voice now. And on not only we want a voice, we want to vote also. So most of the international organizations, most of as it was being described, most of the countries are actually setting up consultation mechanisms with youth delegates. And this is already a proof, this is already a show of how open they are and how aware they are that these young people have specific voices and they have specific challenges, but also they bring opportunities to the table. And then let's not forget that in most countries, when you are 18, you can vote. And that's a tremendous power that you have in your hands, and you can organize yourself, as it was being described, changing the individual responsibility to the collective responsibility. So civil society organizations are excellent to do that, but don't forget that you are also political actors, and you have the right to vote, and you have the right to organize yourself in political parties, and you have the right to organize yourself in movements. And all these are taken into consideration. Of course, that this requires, and I don't know if this is going to make much sense on my answer to the why peers, but the UN has many, many mechanisms by which it holds the governments accountable on the implementation of the SDGs. And the SDGs have something very different from the previous agenda we had. I was a member of the civil society organization that was created in Portugal when we had the MDGs. So the predecessors, the ones from the end of the 90s. And one of the things that this agendas have, and this one, the SDGs, is that it's not an agenda founded by healthy countries to be implemented by developing countries. Now, all the countries in the world have to deliver on the SDGs. And this means that I agree with your provocation, Viviane, and I agree with what was said. There's no one SDG that can be more relevant at all. Because, what about if we don't have our health? What about if we are subjected to violence? What about if we don't have the right to move? What about if we don't have a planet? So and this is the main idea behind the SDGs, they are all interlinked, they are mutually reinforcing, and a positive investment in one of them will have a positive spillover, or will create a positive synergy in all the others. So what I would say about the Why Peers movement and the effort that's being done, what this has done, it's the sort of cascade training. So you train young people, and then those young people train other young people. Why? Because, and this was my point, most of the mechanisms are quite complex. I don't know how many of you have heard until today about the VNRs, the Voluntary National Reports, or about the UPR. And these are big words that it's not easy to understand how they work. So access to information and discussions like this are always vital. And having youth delegates, it's like the translation between the big fora and then this more local-based and national-based movement. So I would say that in order to get a seat at the table, you need to know where the table is, and you need to learn the language of the people that sit at the table, but also be ready to be disruptive. And sometimes it's not easy, but you often come, and I'm just going to say this as a sort of a self-criticism. You come to the UN, and most of the times the jargon, it's completely you cannot get it. We talk in acronyms. It's of course it's to make our lives easier because the words are so long that we kind of make them short. But when I hear certain criticisms about the UN, and some of them are really deserved, but some of them are not, I often think, as we say in Portugal, it takes two to tango. So if people don't understand what the UN is doing, probably it's because the UN cannot explain properly what they are doing. And I think that this engagement between youth and these mechanisms, they are vital to translate better where the table is, what language do we talk at the table, how disruptive we can and should be, and also to hold our governments accountable. So this was a very lengthy explanation, but I couldn't resist also talking about other things that were not asked to me. Thank you.
Ms. Ferrer, I don't know if other panelists will want to add something after this not long but brief explanation, but I will encourage them to share something by their perspective. Ms. Pilipovic, you're welcome.
Yes, I agree with Monica, which I would just like to add is please do not wait to find a table, and your advantage is not a table at the room, because you are the young people which are using a lot of social network and your world is virtual. So please make that table for your own and use your right and ask that people to come to your table so you can change the game if you want. And what I get as a metaphor when you asked the question was massive attack. That was my favorite group when I was a young, so, which was last century. But but nevertheless, find what is your massive attack. And I really think that they're also giving the one illusion is that you have to wait to grow up. It's illusion. You don't have to wait because you have your special knowledge, your experience. You're the somebody who are, as Monica said, present now, and use that and use the tools which are normal for you. For me, it's difficult to use new technology. I'm always asking my children to help me. They have 6 and 8 years, please. And they really know much better than me, but use that and make the change. Really, your hand.
Thank you. Ms. Karmanova, would you like to add something to this? Because we're traveling around countries, so each country probably have something specific which should be shared.
Yes, thank you for that. Actually, the panelists have already pretty much said what I wanted to say, so thank you for that. But what I would like to add is that I know how not modest is going to sound, but I'm the living example of a young person who's obviously having a seat at the table for Bulgarian youth. And that's what I want to say to all other young people, is that they should believe in themselves and try and get in touch with their government or NGOs or anyone who could actually help them out with getting a seat at the table, because it's worth it. And recently I participated in a different conference in Scotland. Actually, it was an online conference, and it was called Globe Scotters. Young Scots now have the ability to vote at the age of 16 in order to be included more in the democratic process, which is a great step forward for all young people. And that I believe they're the first country in the world to actually implement that. So there you go. There you have it. They said we wanted to be more involved, and it happened for them. And if it happens for them, then it could happen for all of us. And as Ms. Farrow said, governments are becoming more inclusive and very much open towards young people. And believe me when I say that young people are now definitely more open and more demanding towards their governments. And I can see that not only in the UN, but on an EU level as well. You know, there is some kind of a competition, friendly competition between countries, especially on EU level. And they all want to be very modern, and it's very, very modern to actually start paying attention to the needs of young people. So please don't be desperate, because when I first learned about the UN Youth Program, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but then I asked myself, if I want to do it, why do I want to do it? And I said, I want to do it because I want to be the voice of the other people, the other young people that cannot be at the table. So it's a very responsible task, but it's very much worth it. So please don't lose hope, and just believe that you can do it, because we can, actually.
Okay, I think that it was a good wrap-up of answers for the opening question, and I hope that we will have a lot of questions till the end. But at this moment, I officially want to say happy birthday to Ms. Ferro from the organization team, from the Youth Alliance Kruševo, and all other people here responsible for doing this, what we are doing in the moment. And we would like to say that you really, really deserve to have a good year without any disturbances and stay healthy, happy, and live long.
Thank you so much. It's very nice. I couldn't want a better way to spend my birthday. Thank you.
So we will not continue in this festive mood, but we will continue with some of the messages I've received in the chat. And I have one from Mikhail Divyakovsky. He said that his personal favorite among SDGs is number 17, partnership for the goals, because he thinks that nowadays there are many small companies or schools or governments that are aware of the issues and are working towards fulfilling the goals and are a great example. So we need more collaborations, more examples, and more people that are willing to ask for help or for advice, even it's a whole country or government that's using it. So this is the first comment. And the second comment comes from Joanna. She would like to thank to Ms. Ferro that she is coming from a glamorous organization and still taking time to be with young people and speak so openly and referencing all those programs and initiatives. And in this sense, I would like to invite IPR Albania or their hub to share their experience or thoughts about how they are organized, because Ms. Ferro several times mentioned the voluntary national reviews. So I know that IPR was deeply involved in the making of North Macedonian ones, but I'm not sure how the Albanian network was involved or it wasn't involved at all. So I'm just curious. So if somebody, I think that Ms. Dervishi was writing in the name of IPR Albania, I'm not sure. Okay, maybe later. So do we have another questions or comments or something which is directed to our presenters, or I should ask a question again? I don't see any hands. Or I see one. No. I need to repeat the questions for the Tirana Hub. My question is, was IPR Albania or the hub invited to took participation in making a voluntary national report of Albania according to sustainable development goals? Okay, in the meantime, we have internet connection problems with a lot of networks. So Francesco Capellini again have a question.
Yes, I do. It's going to be
you're welcome.
Short and direct to Dragana Filipovic. I wanted to ask if your organization belongs to a wider European organization or network, because like the network I belong to here in Portugal does similar thing to yours. And I guess it can be a nice connection in terms of providing a widespread framework in which to build alternative answers and alternative economies.
No, I'm not, because I'm the one and only with 2 small children and a husband who is in the hospital now. But this is the truly life in the small places. So no, but a lot of organizations contact me because of results and because they want to cooperate with me. I have, I'm also the part of the network of the hubs, and I'm also a lot of support into the mentorship program, because I do develop a lot of different kind of the mentorship, especially for the developing these creative hubs in the rural area, but also for the other area in the urban aspect.
So and also what is very interesting and which can be very educative is that we also develop a board game about social entrepreneurship, which is combination of what Bogomila said, the social environment and economic, but in social entrepreneurship, it's a 3P, which is a people, profit, planet. So we are also educating people how to use profit in order to make solution for the people and take care about the planet. So we are open for different kind of the networks, but for me, the personally is the question of the people, how to manage all of that, because between the big networks and big projects, I decide to have the smaller scale because I want to spend my time with the family and here with the community, because this is the place where I can really can add value. But when the other organization contact me, I'm really, really open to help. And this is not only depend of that am I in the network or not.
So I have still raised hands by Nicola Passaro, but I'm not sure if he wants to speak or this is the hand from the previous question. Nicola, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it was the end of the previous question.
Okay,
Sorry.
Thank you. So I have a question for Ms. Filipovic. Here, it's not common if an NGO do something to relate their work with some of the SDGs. So, for example, if you're a youth organization and you are dealing something with the improvement of education system, and then you're organizing some events or you're running some projects and you have some results, if you ask them, are you contributing to the sustainable agenda? They always said, no, we are not working on it. But actually they are directly improving the conditions and directly working on the improvement of sustainability in the country. What is the state, what is the position of the NGOs towards this in the Serbia? What's going on there? Do they believe that they can change the world by their activities? Do they relate their activities with SDGs? Even if they are not directly announcing that this is an SDGs campaign?
Yes, they're doing that much more than the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that it's also connected with promotion, and especially because of this year, so many questions which we didn't think about that become a priority because of healthy and the way we are living. So some question about our life just raised this as priority of global and humanity. So yes, they're doing that, and I think that if they were passive, now they're much more active. But it's a combination of the two sides. It's a combination of also that as Ms. Monica said, that nothing is the same, and the business is also not the same. We're not coming back, and everything is different. So there is also a personal interest to find the answer. What is future now in the present? And if we watch that to these goals, then we will have a future, and this is it. So it's very simple from the life. You know, it's something that we are living now, and this is the difference. Maybe I agree with you that maybe most of them do not know to give you the names of these goals, but they're much more present in everyday life, which I think is very, very important. And also they are getting, there is a big and active community of the social business and social responsible, also business in a big company such as Global Impact. And I think that you have also very good organization there in North Macedonia with Connect, I think so. So I think that you're also doing a great job about these goals globally through the business also, not only with the youth organization.
Yes, I am very happy that in these discussions now in 2020, we are overcoming the barrier which was somehow in some period put it that SDGs and sustainability is related only with environmental issues, and it's exclusively to environmental civil society organizations. And more and more I hear about social economy related with the sustainability, which for me it's one of the biggest things we need to support and to develop in the future. But I would like to hear what is the situation in Bulgaria, because Ms. Kormanova is coming from the Eco Club. So do you still think that exclusively NGOs are fighting for the sustainability just in their borders, or they are now doing coordination and cooperation with other NGOs, for example, social ones, or I don't know, something related with social economy?
Thank you for the question. Actually, yes, NGOs are coming together from different sectors of the NGO sector in general. So you have social NGOs coming together with, let's say, NGOs for ethnic people or marginalized groups, and they're working together. Also, what I've personally noticed, for example, the company that I work with, they're very much interested in corporate social responsibility. And what they do is they provide, let's say, scholarships for educational purposes to young people. They organize different contests, but it's all dedicated to quality education, which is one of the main SDGs. So we also can see that the corporate sector is moving towards the SDGs, and they're working together with NGOs, and I think it's for a good cause, so it's happening.
Okay, we should continue in that direction. So I'm curious about the projects from the NGOs and the participants which are here, which are somehow related to any of the sustainable goals, and maybe you would like to share what are you doing actually, why you are on this session, and did you take something from this session to your work?
Sorry, can we speak?
Yes,
from
please.
The Tirana local hub?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Hello
welcome.
to everyone. Thank you for your active participation. This has been like 2 very beautiful days. We had some problem connection before about what it has been developed in Albania about the CDSG. The fact that now Albania is part of the program of the Youth Delegate, it's a huge progress. And also in the survey for the UN 75 annual questionnaire, we had a good impact and a good mobilization from all the organization and young people in Albania. And there are several organizations that are working with specific CDSG, where I can mention the quality of education. As we all might know or have evaluated, quality of education is a huge debate in Western Balkan and in Albania as well. And several projects has been undertaken to combat the corruption in the higher education. Meanwhile, with the Young Professional Network, we are working with the CDSG number 5, CDSG number 8, but of course that the CDSG number 5, gender equality, is an integral part of our daily work. During this year, we have been mostly focused in the CDSG number 8, decent work and economic growth. And for this reason, we have cooperated a lot with the trade unions in Albania, representative of small and medium enterprises, about the youth labor rights and about their participation in a decent form in the labor market. And to sum up, several good initiatives has been undertaken about the CDSG and sustainable development, but what we have seen during the 2 last year is that the role of young people has been increased on all this action, and this is the form that it should be proceeded, and increasing our voice and repeating this thing is an important thing to further achieve the CDSG. Thank you.
Thank you. It was really nice to hear that you're working on several SDGs and you're interconnected all of this. Does anybody else want to share something from their work, maybe to inspire others, or maybe to find somebody who will run together next project? Okay, I see one hand. Christian, please.
Thank you. So just briefly, how we are doing the whole SDG story here in the country. Actually, what happened with the SDG and why we are so engaged with the SDGs, and we were also part, as Biljana mentioned, of the National Voluntary Review. In 2015, when the SDGs were adopted, prior to the adaptation of the SDG, with the support of UNFPA Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, we implemented the campaign where we asked the young people to share their voices regarding what kind of future they want to see. And it was a very interesting situation that we organized several consultations with young people around the country. And at the same time, we also organized online consultations for the ones that were not able to participate physically in the ones. And what was also interesting part is that we had youth recommendations regarding the post-2015, the Agenda 2030, that were delivered to the delegation that was going at the summit in New York for adoption of the SDGs. So what we are doing mostly here in the country, aside of working specifically on some specific topics regarding in terms of empowering young people to empower each other, we are doing a promotion of the SDGs on all level. So what we are doing, we are trying to transfer the young people's voices, but also to transfer the voices that all of us are contributing to the SDGs somehow. And we need to be aware of that, because there was, in the presentations that were shown, there was the guide for the lazy person that is helping achieving the SDGs. So all of us somehow are helping to the achievement of the SDGs. It doesn't matter if you're just turning off the light when you're leaving the room, or if you're taking care about what kind of paper you're using, or if you're recycling, or whatever you're doing. All of us are somehow contributing, but we are not aware. So that's how actually we are trying to raise the voices and make everyone aware that we are contributing, all of us, somehow to the development and to the achievement of the SDGs.
Thank you, Christian. And there is a comment from Michael again. By his knowledge, one of the most SDGs engaged NGO is ISAC. I think it exists almost everywhere, and he was part of ASAC for a while. And in every project activity they do and apply for the international committee, they have to mention which SDGs is their project helping to. So because we are near the finishing of this panel, my last question will be, what do you think, what is the most important to do the sustainable development in the Southeast Europe region? Since the Agenda 2030 is for the whole world and each country have their targets, their priorities, which SDGs should be raised first. So what do you think about our region, Southeast Europe? What are the values and what is the European connection into the sustainable development we should aim to and we would like to achieve it? And this is an open question for all the participants and for the panelists too. Nobody?
In fact, this is a very difficult question because all the CDSGs has its importance, and it's very difficult to choose only one.
I was asking this from the position of youth perspective. For example, which are the most important topics for you? If you ask me, for me, I would say yes, no poverty and world without hunger are the highest priority, because if we are living in poverty and we are hungry, we can't go to search for a work, or can't go prepared to the school, or we are not able to engage with our friends meaningfully or to do meaningful participation, or each of the goals are somehow related for this one, but in my position, these two are the highest priority, which should be solved as fast as possible. So that was kind of my question. What for you is the most important topic which should be priority and which will take another goals with them? So I have a hand from Ms. Bogomila.
Yes, actually, something that I have noticed as a youth delegate is that traditionally for a couple of years now, decent employment and quality education are perhaps the most important, the vital priorities for young people, not only in Bulgaria, but the Balkan region. And I have spoken to my colleagues from Romania and Albania, and we've talked, and they said the same thing, that quality education and employment is very much the same for them as well. And I believe that the background that they're coming from is very similar to the one that we're coming from in Bulgaria. So the Balkan countries are going to be very similar. So.
Thank you. And always when there is a debate or discussion about youth, always we hear about unemployment, participation, living standards. We heard about decent working. We heard about inclusion, and somehow I expect that I will heard about this as your priorities and the priority in this region. And I have another comment in the chat from Jovica. He says, by me, for every health free market economy, it is important to fulfill three important things. First, green and clear environment. Second, to ensure basic resources. 3, to keep air. 4, to impact for community. I think it's a new concept of modern global capitalism economy at 20th decade. And urban development. Do you agree with him? So I'm not sure if Christian is searching for... Okay.
If I may just jump in for a short.
Yes.
Everything that was mentioned is important, but what is crucial, according to me, is reducing inequalities. And that is actually what we are doing with the country office here of UNFPA in North Macedonia. We are offering special workshops for the ones that are vulnerable and they are somewhere left behind. And what is really important, according to me, is to reduce the inequalities between the countries, within the communities, in order to achieve sustainable development goals all around the world. But also what is crucial is partnerships. So I think that thing that we are doing, somehow empowering young people to empower each other, or empowering group of young people or the most vulnerable ones to empower others, is crucial when it comes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda.
So, by your opinion, do you think that this youth conference actually is promoting the sustainable development?
Yes, for sure. It's 100% empower young people to empower each other. I hadn't had the chance to follow all the program, but for sure the sessions that I was present at, they were super empowering to each other. We're offering tools, knowledge, and basis where you can offer a platform to the young people to be empowered, and after that to go back in their communities and empower other peers.
Yes, I mentioned this because if you follow the sessions you already passed, and the one who will come actually will see that it's step-by-step approaching and delivering sustainability in the society according to the needs of young people. Ms. Ferro was searching for...
Just to answer your provocation on, because all of us work in very specific areas, although we acknowledge that the impact in one of the SDGs will have a positive impact on the others, or a negative, but that's not what we want. So, but of course that there's this last comment that was made on reducing inequalities. This is why we focus especially on goals 3, 4, 5, so health, education, and equality, and gender equality, because we see the transformative power that investing in these areas has in all the other SDGs. And decent employment, of course, it's paramount. It's really critical to reduce inequalities. But in order to have access to decent employment, you also need to have access to universal health coverage. And universal health coverage has to include sexual reproductive health and rights. Because if you cannot protect yourself from an unwanted pregnancy, from a sexual transmitted infection, if you cannot decide if you want to have a family, if you want to have children, how many children you want to have, and the spacing between them, and do it in a safe manner, the investment in education may not be transformative, may not be efficient. So, and this is why this conversation on the SDGs is so interesting, because it's really understanding how they are all intertwined and how investing in one of them will have a positive impact on the others. And I think that I couldn't agree more with what my colleagues here in the panel are saying with Dragan and Bogomila, because it was really interesting how we come from different backgrounds and we work in different areas, but I think that we agree with each other. And well, sorry ladies, I didn't consult you, but I've learned a lot with each other. So I didn't consult them before saying this. But I think that this is how the SDGs should be seen, as a challenge that has to be approached through multi-perspectives and in this multi-level dimension. This is just what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferro. Since we don't have any other comments and we don't have other hands, I will invite our two panelists to have their final conclusions, and that will be the end of this panel. Ms. Bogomila, please.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to ask Ms. Ferro something, a very vital question, especially now under the pandemic conditions that we're put in. What is your advice to young people who are currently facing violence under any form, either verbal, mental, or physical? And what should they do? And is there any way that the UNFPA can help?
Well, thank you so much for the question. And well, I'm sorry, I didn't ask the moderator if I could answer.
It's perfect.
Oh, sorry, I was just jumping in. Actually, it's one of the key investments we have done in not only in that region but throughout the world is to reduce to respond to the increase of domestic violence and gender-based violence that we saw happening from all over the world. We actually have some estimates from the end of April where this was already foreseen. It's being locked down and not having access to the public space as much as you wanted. So I know that in many countries we have supported and helped to establish hotlines for victims of violence, also training programs for authorities and for people who work in this area to be more aware of all this violence that is occurring in the private space. And though it's not a specific or a big issue in the region, we also have raised the alarm on the increase of cases of female genital mutilation and child marriage, because UNFPA runs with UNICEF the two global programs to end female genital mutilation and the global program to end child marriage. And we saw an increase throughout the world on the number of young people exposed to these threats, especially girls, as you know. But I think that throughout the world there's been a raise of awareness on the need, when you are doing the priorities on the response to COVID, that this type of response doesn't fall between the cracks, or it's not put on the bottom of the list of priorities. We understand that the COVID is really a big threat, and it needs to be given an answer, mobilizing the whole society. But you cannot neglect areas like sexual reproductive health and rights and GBV when you are doing your national action plans. And by the way, yesterday I was talking about this in a different setting. One of the things that we've been raising awareness also is when you are designing the COVID response plans, don't forget to consult young people, not only because they have specific needs, but also because they have this huge capacity to help us to design the tools. I, like Dragana, I ask my daughters, how does my new phone work? And it's not that I'm particularly info excluded, it's because it's how you are groomed. And when I was born, there was no mobile phone, so it's not as natural for me. But this also makes you, because you are such intensive users of technology, you know how to design the programs, you know how you want to see an answer, and you know how you raise the question. So it's also about using young people to design the programs that we have. And I had to mention this about young people because, Dragana, I could so relate to you on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferro. Dragana, would you like to continue in this manner?
Of course. When there is a technology and children, always. Yeah. What I would like to add is that to send a message is that these goals are not somewhere else. And these goals are not just writing somewhere else on the paper and that you really need this table to discuss about them. It's really something which is that we are living that. And if we attach that with the empathy as a new important thing, then we will really have a change. And what I'm really accounting is that in the next 10 years, when my children grown up, and when they come to this kind of the conference, that they will be boring because there are no topic to discuss. So I'm really, really accounting on that. So good luck from my side.
So, Ms. Cormano, we start with you and we open the panel with your presentation. It's good if we finish with you.
Thank you. Yes. Well, actually, I agree very much with what Dragana said, because I hope that we live up to a future where we no longer have to talk all about these issues. So my advice to all young people, especially that are now here in the conference, it's great that you're here. It's great that you're active, and it's great that you obviously are very much interested in your own future and the future of your friends and the ones that are the future generations, the one after you. So keep your spirits up and just keep on doing what you're doing. And yes, you may start doing things as a lazy person, the lazy guide for achieving sustainable development. But I hope that inspires you and that you actually get to walk and make bigger steps towards sustainable development. So please don't give up. That's what I'm asking from you.
Thank you for your message, and that will be the final message in this panel. Please do not give up from this conference and follow us tomorrow and the other days. Stay safe. Keep chatting and discussing about all the topics which are interesting for you. And don't forget that the most important thing in this period is to keep your mental health and to stay alive. So have a nice evening. See you in next occasion, and tomorrow prepared for the next sessions. Thank you. Bye.